Today I thought we are recapping a little bit the importance and different aspects of right speech. Right speech is defined in the sutras quite consistently as four things. To abstain from what? What is the first one we refrain from if we want to practice right speech? Abstaining from lying, okay. Just because it's the truth, is it always good to say? Not necessarily. Okay, what else should we refrain from? Harsh speech. It can be true, but then if you present it very violently and very harsh, very rude, it's still not right speech. Then, thirdly, we refrain from divisive speech. Speech that is intended to disunite those who are united. And number 4 is speech that is unimportant, idle chatter, useless talk. So as we said in the beginning already, not everything just because it's true and factual is therefore good to say. And another aspect that is often good to consider is time and place. So even something that is true, but right now maybe there was a small argument between husband and wife, and then you might have an observation that is true, but if she's already not in a good mood, you better wait a little bit, It's probably not the right time, or a person is very hungry at the moment. It's probably also not the time to bring up deep issues, and then you have a hole in your stomach and very difficult to digest anything mentally during that period. So finding the right time is actually very important and helpful. In fact, the right timing can make all the difference between a person completely rejecting whatever you have to say right now, or the person listening, welcoming, and listening attentively, and maybe even receiving well the feedback or the speech that we're offering. So timing is already very important. So in the situation, is the person ready? Sometimes you can even ask, in our monastic tradition, we have this principle that if we first ask for permission, when everyone, is it okay, can I talk with you about something related to the Vinaya or in terms of conduct? Is it okay, can we speak about that? And then if the person says, yes, sure, why not? Most likely that's the reply. And then you have an invitation, then the person is receptive. It's very different than just cold approaching somebody, tapping him on the shoulder. Oh, by the way, what you've done. And this is so it's a nice principle that we find already in the Vinaya enshrined. It's actually a rule for the monks. Before we admonish someone, we should first ask for permission. But it's the right time. And then as we said earlier, just because something is correct and true, it still matters how we present it. Whether we come with a lot of hostility or maybe even anger to the conversation, or maybe we first establish our own mind in equanimity, or maybe even better, with a sense of loving kindness. Because often the conversation partner might feel whether you come with anger, even though the words maybe are not angry, but the emotion might still come through. Or you first establish yourself in loving kindness, compassion, and then have a warm conversation, a friendly conversation with the other person. So it will likely go quite differently. So it's not sometimes, but then also it's not always completely in your hand. Sometimes you do your best, you increase the probability for a good conversation, but it can still go all kind of directions. But then at the end of the day, then you don't have to blame yourself, isn't it? Because if you no, actually I have been polite, factual, I didn't come from hostility, there was a heart of loving kindness even if the person maybe did not take something well, you don't have to blame yourself for that. You had a good intention, you've done your best to present the theme or topic to the best of your abilities, and if you look back, was there anything coming from your side that was not appropriate? If you find no, you don't have to blame yourself. It's also important. Sometimes people just look at the result. Oh, didn't work out. I'm no good. I failed. Well, you're just one part of the equation. The other person also is part of it. So sometimes you might just not be fortunate enough. Sometimes we don't guess the right moment. Even though you ask for permission first, can I say something? It can still go sideways. But then it's always important to check in. Did I contribute to that in any way? Or not so much. And if yes, what can I do differently next time? Yeah. So nobody is born with the innate ability always to find the right words. At least I've not been born like that, and I hope, well, I guess most others also not. And it's an ongoing process where we keep polishing, improving, and it's an important skill to learn actually. There's a whole tradition they call nonviolent communication, where Marshall Rosenberg has established a whole system of how to communicate, not just in a non-violent way, in a kind way, but also still to the point, clear. And so that is also an important message is getting conveyed, but without blurring the lines between what they think he did, or speculation, or accusations, but just to the point, factual, expressing one's own feelings, needs, also trying to recognize in the other person where is he coming from. It's a little bit like in Satipatthana, internal and external, where you recognize your own mindfulness, anger or lack thereof, or loving kindness, greed or generosity, but not only in yourself, but also in others. External, bahita. What is the emotion of another person? What's the state that he's in? Is he calm, peaceful, or agitated, restless? So if you see that, then you can respond much better, of course. Among the 4 types of wrong speech, what would you say is the one that is most difficult to maintain purity, abstaining from lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, or idle chatter? Which one is the most difficult to maintain a high level? Idle chatter? Yeah. What kind of conversations would you classify in that category? What kind of topics are idle chatter? Talking about other people, praising them? Can also be idle chatter, depends on what we are praising, right? Talking about other people, movie stars, politics, sports, right? Politics. Unless you're a politician, well, then it's maybe not idle chatter, then it's your job. But for most others who are not politicians, it's often idle chatter, just passing time, complaining. So often, we can ask ourselves, where is it leading? How does it make the mind feel? Is this arousing wholesome states? Are the wholesome states increasing or are they decreasing? Are the unwholesome states increasing or decreasing? And interestingly, even when we find a good topic, even there comes a point where it's probably getting too long or an endless conversation. Often it starts on something wholesome, but then it can also go other directions. So a really nice principle that I once heard is to try to make one's speech valuable, like gold. Gold has a high value, has a high price. Why? Because it's very difficult to find. It doesn't grow on the trees. So you have to dig for a long time and find it at the right place. And whatever is in abundance, everywhere, all around, usually these things don't have high value. We don't pay a lot of money for air, right? But for something that's very rare and difficult to find, that often has a high price, a high value. The same with speech, actually. Speech that is just happening all the time, continuously. A person just can never stop talking. And it's just like in the background, there's always some chatter going on. After a while, people don't listen anymore. Yeah, you might be talking and talking, but nobody's listening. But then there are also some people who actually talk very little. Very rarely they say something. But once the person stands up or says something, she's saying something. Everybody will listen. Because you don't talk all the time, it must be something quite special, quite important. So in this way, you can make your speech into something that is also taken seriously by others by knowing the right measure. Matanyuta. How much is necessary or when is it necessary? And often there's maybe not much to contribute, then just remain silent, just listen. Anyway, most conversations, many people are speaking, but nobody is listening. So you can learn to listen well. That's another mindfulness practice. to really listen. What is the person? Where is he coming from? What is he trying to point to? What are the values that the person has? So in this way, mindfulness can be applied not just internally, again, but also externally. And sometimes the words that people say might not even capture completely what they're trying to convey. So trying to listen between the lines. What does he really want? And sometimes you learn a lot of good things actually about your conversation partner by really having a deep interest in the person herself, rather than just jumping to conclusions. That's what he said, it's all wrong. Yeah. So I think speech is one of the most important and relevant factors that contribute to harmony in a community. It can be a monastic community, in the family, or of course the opposite, to a lack of harmony. If there's a lot of harsh speech, quarreling, just useless talking, or divisive speech in the worst case, that will not conduce to harmony, right? So I think everybody likes to be in a community where we feel well, where we feel taken care of. So then it's actually very important to cultivate right speech. So what are the factors? Truthful, so meaningful, or as the Buddha sometimes says, worth recording, worth remembering, something that you say so valuable, so meaningful, that people will want to remember what you have said. And also the opposite of harsh speech is gentle speech, speech that goes to the heart, this endearing, pleasing to others to listen. Then instead of dividing, speech that is unifying. When we recognize, these two had some dispute or some disagreement with each other, maybe we can highlight the similarities. Or, actually, it's not so bad. What you really meant was actually more like this. Or you try to show the points of each other, or try to see that, highlight that they actually have more in common than what disunites them. So speech that tries to unite people who might be divided. And then speech that is meaningful, purposeful, related to something of value, the Dhamma, the spiritual practice. But then also sometimes practical things also we have to discuss, isn't it? So that also has value. But then, if there's nothing special to deliberate on, just sit in silence. Also nice. Can meditate, huh? Do you have any friend with whom you sometimes just sit in silence? Do you know about this experience? It's actually a very interesting experience. When you know each other so well that you don't even have to talk with each other all the time. You feel still comfortable just being alone in a room with a second person and just being silent there. That you don't have to talk constantly. Often you might feel a bit uncomfortable. Oh no, the conversation has stopped. Somebody has to say something. Let me say something quickly. But actually, when you're really close with a person, a family member or a good friend, you just sit in a room, silent. A minute goes by, then a person might say something, and then you really listen deeply. What in Myanmar, in a monastery where I ordained, what we sometimes did when I went to see my teacher, and it was getting late in the evening a bit, or his sun has set, and I was surprised, why is there no light on? One time I asked him, why is the light not on? Because of the mosquitoes, we have, usually they use candle, but then you ignite a candle and then all the moths and mosquitoes will fly there and burn themselves. So in order not to unnecessarily, just to have a bit of light in the room, if we don't need the light, we don't put on the light either. So we would just often sit in the darkness for a while. So often our conversation started, it was maybe 6 p.m., 6:30, but then it's getting dark and nobody would turn on the light. So then we just keep having our Dhamma conversation in darkness. And I found it's actually a very interesting experience because you don't see the face anymore. No facial expressions, no gestures. So the hearing becomes very prominent. And we are almost forced to listen even more carefully than usual because we get no clues by body language. And I found it actually a very good practice and learned to enjoy the process of just sitting in a dark room and having a conversation or a Dhamma conversation. And the voice, you listen to hear many things in another person's voice that normally you don't register. And the tone of voice, the speed, the volume. So it's very interesting actually. So again, the mindfulness gets alerted by reducing some of the other senses. There's no more seeing happening especially. And then the hearing can get more prominence. So it's right out. If you have a good friend, spouse, turn off the lights, make sure nobody stumbles over something, and then have a nice conversation. Okay, so right speech, very important, always something to improve, develop, and something that the monastics are practicing, devotees are practicing. And if just imagine the whole world, including politicians, scientists, everyone would practice right speech all the time, what state would the world be in? It would be fantastic. So let us contribute in our own small way towards making the world a better place by ourselves, using our speech like gold, making it a treasure, something that counts, something that has value. I offer that for your reflection today.